What is up, YouTube? Mr. Porkchop back here with another video. Today's video is going to be going over a topic that I've already covered once. I have a video on my channel that is entitled, I believe, Text Files in Python. This is going to be kind of more of an advanced um, overview of text files because I feel like I didn't really do that topic justice in the first video. I covered a lot of the basics, but I wanted to go over a few things that I learned in a recent project that I did as far as pulling data from either a CSV file or a text file. So yeah, without further ado, we will get into it. First though, if you're new here, please subscribe, hit the like button if you're liking these videos, and leave me some comments and let me know what you think. So I have this new project that I just opened or just created. I'm going to go ahead and actually just create a new Python text file inside of here. We'll just call this main. This will be basically the file that I put everything in, and then we'll run everything through here. As you can see, I have a text file in my project already that I kind of prepped, and it just says it's just named people.txt. So that is what we'll be pulling some data from. On top of this, I think what we will do, we'll create one more file, and we'll just name this people. And this is where I'm gonna have my class called people. So we'll just create our class real quick. All right, and our people class is going to have, let's see, we're gonna have a first name, a last name. We will have an address, and then we will also have an age. And if you're not familiar with creating classes and stuff, I do apologize. I'm not really going to go over how that is all done in this video. I'm assuming that you guys have already kind of done some stuff with Python and creating classes and stuff like that, and you're really just trying to pull data um, into your program. So that's what I'm going to kind of focus in on, is just pulling data. But let's assume that you have this class here, and your class obviously has these different attributes. And then the data for those attributes are going to be inside of this text file here. So inside of our main file, we could, let's go ahead, actually, let's just do from people, import people. That way we can use our class. And obviously you could do, my person is going to equal people, and then you can kind of type in whatever you want their name to be. All right, so let's just assume that that is our person. We passed in all of the attributes that we needed, and then obviously, you can and we could do something like that. I need to set up my configurations because I haven't set anything up yet. So we'll do just Python, and we'll go to our main file. All right, so now we can run it. And you'll see that, well, actually, if I move my head out of here, you can see over here that it prints out the first name. Actually, let me zoom in a little bit for you guys so you guys can kind of see things a little better. Kind of hide most of this. There you go. So yeah, that's basically, creating a class and then creating an instance of the class and then just printing out, one of the attributes from that instance or from that class object that we just created. Now, normally when you do a program, you want to be able to kind of automate this. So you don't want to have to, if you want to make a bunch of people, you have a text file with like 10, 20 people, and you want to create instances for each of those people and then keep them in a list. You don't want to have to do it by hand like this. So for that, what we would do is pull the data from our text file. And in order to do that, all we really have to do is basically go, well, actually, I normally create a function called like DataPoll or something, and then I will use that function in order to get all of my data. So let's do that. So let's go ahead and just create a new file. We will call this DataPoll, and then we'll basically just define a function in here that says, pull data. And this is going to basically take, your file name as a parameter, because you have to pass this function a file name for it to work on. And then from there, okay, yeah, so what we're going to want to do from here pretty much is type with open, and then this is where your file name is going to go. So you just can put in file name, and that way it'll pass whatever file name you're using into your function there. And then you can basically give it an alias. So for this, we will do with open file name as, let's just call it people in file, right? That's basically that's going to open up your file, and it's going to give you access to all the data in your file. Now, in order to loop through it, you're going to want to kind of create a for loop. So you can do for. I like to use row as the word because it just kind of makes it easier for me to understand in my mind. When you do for row, and then you can go in people in file. What this line basically says is for every row inside of that file, we're gonna iterate through our file basically row by row by row. All right, and then you can basically go ahead and just do. Actually, let's go ahead and let's pass in one more parameter into here, and we'll just call this list. All right, so this will be our list. And then what we're going to do basically is we're going to do list dot append, and then we will do row. Okay, that will be our basic kind of setup for now, just so I can show you some stuff. So with that in mind, we will go ahead and do from data pull import pull data, and then below here we will basically do pull data, and we will add our text file name, which I'm going to use the text file that I have right here, which is just going to be people.txt. And then I need to pass it a list. So I'm just going to say my list. Obviously, I need to create a list up here. So we'll just create an instance of an empty list up here. That's my list. Data pull right there. And then I can go ahead and print my list. So if we run this, you'll see that it prints basically everything that is in my current text file. Let me go over here real quick, 1 second. All right. So as you can see, this is my text file. It basically has a list of first names, last names, addresses, and ages. That's basically what it is. And as you can see here, I was able to pull all that information into one big list. These little /ns, that basically is just a new line character. So every time there is a new line, that's going to show up. And so you can see I was able to get all the data into a list. Now that's great and everything, but let's say that I wanted to use this data in order to create, a person or instance of people of the people class. How am I really supposed to use this list of all that data together to do that? It's kind of difficult, right? So instead, why don't we go ahead and create one that says, we'll create a list that says first names, and then we'll create a list that is last names, means we will create addresses, or just address. I'll just call the address list. And then the last one is ages, right? So do age list. All right. And now we will go back to our data poll and we will add a few additional things here. So we're going to do pretty much first name, last name, address, and age. All right. So we'll have all of our different data that we want to pull. And then inside of here, what we can do to try to break up this data is we can use something called a delimiter. And a delimiter basically is just going to tell this that it's gonna basically say, all right, when you reach this character, you're gonna start a new row or you're gonna start a new piece of data. So what we can do is we can use a delimiter, we can use this comma as a delimiter. You can also use, a new line character, you can use a tab, whatever makes sense for you in that text file to use. So let's just run this real quick, and using a delimiter, let's say that we wanted to do row split, and then inside of here you basically tell it what delimiter you want to use. I am going to just use this comma as a delimiter. And then if we go back over here, I am actually going to, let's see, we have to change up what we're amending it to. I'm going to just go ahead and use first name list for this example right now. Oop. All right, I used file name and I should have used first name. That's my bad. All right, slight mistake there. Okay, so now you can basically see that it is going to be taking almost like a list of lists. So this is now a 2x2. This is like a 2x2 array. Okay, instead of just, you notice that these brackets were not there before. So now let's say that you wanted to use these lists to create a person. We can go over here. We have our data poll. And honestly, I'm trying to think, I think the best thing to do is just to add each one of these data sets to their own separate list now. So for here, we're going to use some if statements to do that. So we're going to basically say if length of the row equals, and let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 basically in each row, right? So it might actually be a little easier instead of counting rows. What you can do basically, if the data inside of your file has different length rows, you can use if statements with the length of the row and then have it go into that if statement if the row length matches, and then process that data. Because in this one we have 3, or actually 4 if you count the new line character, 4 pieces of data in each row, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create inside of here a couple of Boolean values. So we'll do first name, well, let's just do F name. That way we don't kind of confuse things. AG will stand for age. Now we know what order the rows go in. We know it goes first name, last name, address, and then age. So what we can do is basically just do if first name, then it's going to go into here. We're going to add that first row to that list. And then as it exits that if statement, we are going to set first name to false. That way it won't take that path again. All right, so that'll go through each one. That'll go through each one of our rows, and then it will add those, basically add each row to the corresponding list that we want it to add it to. Now the last else statement, what I usually have it do, if there is some kind of issue, I just have it print the row, right? And that way I know, like, all right, there was some kind of issue. This is the row that I had the issue with. So you guys can do that if you want. But now if we go back over here, we can see when we run this, it should just give us our first names. Make sure that you guys can see everything. Yeah, first names. And right here you can see it only gives us the list of the first names because that is the list that we wanted to print. So we can go in here and we can print our last names. We run this. You can see that now all of our data is in 3 or 4 nice lists that we can actually use now in order to try to create some people. So now let's say that we wanted to create instances of the people class with all this data that we have now pulled from our text file into these nice little lists. All we need to do now is to, for one, I'm going to add a new list. This will be, list of people. And this will be what we kind of keep our people class, like all the class instances of the people that we're about to create. We're going to keep it in that list. All we got to do is do a for loop. So we'll do for I in range of, I believe there's 3. So we'll use 3. And then we are going to do our person is going to be equal to the people class. We are going to use pretty much first names, I, last names, I, address list, I, and age list, I. And then that will create, as it iterates through this, it will create an instance of people, and it'll hold it temporarily in our person. And then all we have to do is use the list of people and our person. All right, and that will create basically three instances of the people class with all of the data that we have from our text file. And then we will be able to basically print out that list if we want to. So we'll print out list of people, right? Okay, so my apologies. That index out of range issue that I was getting is because I forgot that when we pull this data in, it's basically making it like a 2x2 array. So it's a list with another list inside of it. So that's what I'm having the issue here with. Basically, we just want to use that first list. So we're just going to add in basically a 0 right here to kind of correct that issue. So now we have the first basically list inside of our 2x2 array, and there's only one list inside of each. I hope that's not too confusing, guys. But anyway, let's go ahead and run this. Now if we run it and we have our list of people printing, you can see that it actually is printing out the object right here. So we have the class, people class object. We have 3 of them. Obviously, it looks a little weird kind of seeing it like that, but what we can do is inside of our people object over here. Okay, sorry. So what we can do to make it look a little nicer is we can basically redefine the string attribute basically, or this will basically overwrite the print to actually print out the strings that we want to see versus printing out the class object. So we don't want the class object. So instead, we're going to have basically the print return the strings of each attribute that we have. So we have 4 attributes. So we'll go ahead and just add in 4 of these. All right. And then from there, we will just basically tell what those 4 are going to be. It's going to be the first name, last name, address, and the age. All right. There we go. I think that ought to do it. All right, so now if we run this, I think I'll have to actually iterate through my list to do this. So we'll just do for people in list of people, print people. This should actually print out, yeah, there we go. So that will print out each person for us, and you can now see that we have each person object, our class object, right here, and you can see them all nicely printed. And again, we're able to pull all of the data from this text file using our DataPoll function, and then basically just a for loop to iterate through the 3 different people, add in each one of the names, first names, last names, address, age, and then add that into our list of people. And then we basically have a list of all of our class objects. And then we can print all those class objects using this little for loop here. And again, we were able to go in here and redefine the string attribute here so that it won't print out just the class object. I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in here. I just wanted to kind of go over how you can set up these data pull functions to pull different data sets out of the same text file without too much issue, and how you can store them inside of your lists, or in this case, I think they are a list of lists, and then basically use that data in order to create class objects. I hope that everything was explained well enough for you guys to follow along. Let me know inside the comments if there are other things that I didn't really explain that well, or if you guys want more information on it. I felt like this was a good little example to do for you guys, so that you guys will be able to, if you ever need to, you'll be able to basically, take a text file like this, pull that data, use that data, and store it inside of, different data structures, and just make sense of it. And again, another thing I'll do real quick is just, instead of using these commas, what you can do is use tab. So let's say that you have a file from your instructor, and instead of having commas, everything is just separated by tab. I will show you how to basically use tab as a delimiter. Okay, so now if I save this, you'll see over here in our data poll, instead of using this comma as a delimiter, we can actually just use this /t, which is going to stand for tab, and that will basically split everything the same exact way. It's just we now are using tab instead of the comma. And there might have been a couple extra spaces at the end of the 25. That's why it gets a little tricky trying to use tab as a delimiter. I would definitely try to recommend using like a comma or something that's visible to your eye when you're inside of it. All right, now we finally got it to work. Okay, so that's what it is. Again, if you're going to use tab as a delimiter, I would kind of just suggest not using tab, honestly, because tab is a little difficult. You can't really see tab in the text file, so it gets a little tricky. But one of the instructors that I had actually did send me a text file, and it was all basically tabbed out, so I ended up using tab as a delimiter just to avoid having to go in and put my own delimiter, spacing everything out. But that is basically, I think, all I got. Again, let me know in the comments what you guys thought, if this was helpful at all, if you're trying to pull data from a file and having trouble kind of working with it. I think this will help you out a lot. I think this is a good kind of additional information to add along with that other video that I made. So that's all I got for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.